So we just got a few more things we gotta tighten up here. Nothing too crazy. We'll be hitting the road soon enough.
What? No, yeah, I don't care. Skin them anyway. I don't care if they're endangered. Sell those pelts. We need those dollars. What is this? What are you guys doing? Is this like what is this, an automotive webcast or something? Some kind of stream nonsense?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's exactly what it is.
You guys make money doing this?
Yeah.
No kidding. Well, guess what? I'm going to buy it. Give me that. Take that money. Give me this. This is mine now. Never stop growing. Capitalism.
What are you doing?
Expansion.
I don't want this.
Dividends. That can't be how it goes down when one of these big corporations buys your favorite YouTube channel and sends all of the hosts fleeing to the wind.
Here, this is in New York City. Passengers stampeding.
Right? Well, this is Stay Tuned. I'm Tony Angelo, and today we're going to dig into all of it. Taking a quick break, show you how you can support Stay Tuned if you want and look super fly doing it. We have a ton of our merch back in stock. We brought back the Stay Tuned Down and Dirty East Coast Speed white pocket tee. That thing is flying already out of the shop. We're going to lose the shop, our classic joke that we all crack all the time, and our pizza team with a Racing Problem shirt, plus proper Stay Tuned hats, trucker style Richardsons. They're killer. There is a link in the description where you can click the link up here. We appreciate you, and now let's get back to jibber jabbering. So over the last 10 years or so, 3 big channels really came to prominence in the automotive YouTube world. They built these huge channels with huge followings, and they all kind of found success in different ways. And what's cool is that I was involved with all of them separately, and we're gonna have some behind the scenes info. The big 3 to me are Donut Media, Hoonigan, and Motor Trend. Let's dig in. All right, let's get you guys up to speed. Jane, is that cool? He doesn't work there anymore. Don't sue me, please. Let's go. So early on, to help their platform grow, YouTube reached out to all these different large legacy media companies and actually helped fund their YouTube efforts. And in the automotive sector, that was Motor Trend. So what they decided to do, and what was brilliant, is just let their editors from Hot Rod and stuff kind of go wild, and they did a few different things. The biggest, most important, and obviously most impactful was Roadkill. So David and Mike did a couple roadkills for fun. They blew up immediately. It's such a fun idea. It really turned everything on its head. At the time, car shows were Top Gear. It was big dollars, big production, comedy writers. You know, it was just big dollar, big budget, big production, all that stuff. And Roadkill very brilliantly, and just by that nature of who those guys are, did the opposite. Couple of goofballs kicking around, having fun, keeping it grimy, keeping it personal, keeping it funny, and sort of put, I think, all those old school shows in the ground. And it was awesome. They were off and running and rocking, and that became sort of the huge flagpole, tent pole of Motor Trend was Roadkill.
And liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery returning to the space station.
And everything else sort of followed along with it over the next few years. Now, we're not going to talk about Motor Trend a ton here because they very quickly pulled off of YouTube. But as you know, in Roadkill's shadow were a couple other shows. Hot Rod Garage was one of them. That was my show. Me and Lucky kind of came up. We had 1 or 2 really strong years on YouTube before Motor Trend decided to pull everybody off of it. But there was Dirt Every Day. The other ones that people used to watch. What the are they called? There were other Motor Trend shows, right? And there were other shows in the Motor Trend corral, all of them smaller than Roadkill, probably less important. Hot Rod Garage, Roadkill Garage, Engine Masters, Dirt Every Day, head to head, and these were all doing really well. So they were chugging along. 2014, 15, that was the Motor Trend heyday. They amassed like 5 or 6 million subs, and then decided to sort of pull it and then operate as a TV channel. So I don't really consider them your favorite YouTube channel getting bought up. It's very sort of a different thing. They just sort of went their own way. Next up, we have Donut Media, which I think is probably the most creative of the group. What they did and how they grew is super interesting to me. You may not know this, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this publicly, maybe in the last video, but when I was leaving drifting, pro drifting was, I wanted to set my sights on video. That was kind of the next horizon for me. And I said, I want to go where the action is. I went to LA for a winter. And before I got the Motor Trend gig, I went out and met with the guys at Donut, and they were just in their infancy. They were like setting up their offices when I went by. I talked to Nick and Jesse and a couple other people over there about how I could fit in and how it was going to work. And I already seen it. Number one, those guys were super creative. They were doing like genuinely new things in the automotive landscape, and they were going to be a force to be reckoned with. But it just wasn't a great fit for me. And at the same time, I got the Hot Rod Garage gig and wound up moving on. But what's important to note of the way that Donut grew and sort of evolved is that early on they were doing this giant, huge sort of Hoonigan-esque, high dollar drifting and racing videos that cost a fortune, high production, sort of in the Gymkhana vein. And they realized that wasn't really their gig. I don't think they had the returns that they wanted. I don't think any of that stuff went as big as they wanted. There's a bee in here. Might murder him real quick. So Donut took a hard look at what they were doing and said, hey, all of this super blown out, big production stuff isn't our vibe. It doesn't hit for us. We have strengths other places. And that's when they started to take off. And if you don't know this, when things aren't working, a lot of people have a tendency just to keep on grinding. It's like, oh, put your head down, grind it out, never quit, never give up, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you gotta quit doing what you're doing and try something else. Just the way it goes. This is where the real genius of James Humphrey and Jesse Wood and all the Donut guys really starts to come out, because they invent an entire new form of automotive media. And I put a lot of it on Pumphrey because he's such a brilliant host and I have a ton of respect for him. They started doing the up to speed stuff, and they started going, hey, how can we make super engaging, super informative, super fun to watch videos that people will really latch on to, build our viewership, build our fan base. And they started doing that with those up to speed type videos, which is absolutely brilliant. You go and you find a bunch of interesting, poignant footage online. You don't have to shoot it, you don't have to pay for it, you don't have to edit it, none of that. And you grab these clips and you find a topic you want to talk about. Up to speed on the Grand National. Early on, I think they were like, hey, we're still growing. We don't have a ton of money to spend. They didn't have a space to work on cars. They weren't buying cars. And guess what? It didn't matter, because they were creative enough and talented enough to just crank out 1 million of these talking heads videos. And I don't know if you know this, but it's pretty tough to do. I am sitting here doing one right now, and I'll tell you what, it's pretty hard. But they make it look easy. And I think the number one key to success in something like this is having really funny, engaging hosts, right? Pumphrey is brilliant and engaging. I'm gonna stop talking about how good he is at this.
Ram Charger!
But you have to understand how hard that must have been to do. They invented it. They invented it. Hey, we can get a bunch of clips of all these cars, do a bunch of research on them, figure out what they are. And even if you like, the brilliant thing is this: if you don't know what a Grand National is and you've heard about it 3 or 4 times, you wanna watch the video. If you've never heard of it and you know that that guy's funny from the last time you saw him, you're gonna watch the video. And if you're a giant Grand National fan, you're gonna watch that video too. It's awesome, awesome content. They have done just hordes of them, and they have gone through so many cars, and I've watched 1 million of them. I know these are cars that I know a ton about, and I'm like, I'm in. I'm in. It's fun, it's funny, it's engaging, let's rock, right? Talk about power, talk about fun, talk about how these cars are special, and it was a moonshot, and that put Donut Media on the map. And that brings us to the rowdiest of the big 3 companies. No, I'm not talking about Mopar, I'm talking about Hoonigan. These dudes, as you all know, built a giant, gnarly, sort of 2-headed demon of a channel. One head being Ken Block and the massively popular Gymkhana videos, and the other head being a bunch of scumbags in Long Beach, just raising hell and having fun with their cars. And it worked awesome. And I was a part of it very early on. So we should obviously talk about Ken Block, probably the biggest automotive icon of our time. You know, rest in peace. He died tragically, but a huge inspiration to me, a ton of other racers, a ton of other YouTubers, and a brilliant dude who sort of throughout his life made massive, brave choices, and they all seem to sort of work out. So if you don't know, Ken early on owned DC Shoes, and he sold that, but for fun he decided as a 45-year-old man, oh, Travis Pastrana is one of our athletes. He's going to rally school because he's aging out of full-time motorcycle racing. So I think Ken went up there just for fun. Let's, you know, if you have that opportunity, you guys would do the same thing. And I don't think he thought anything would come out of it. He's in his mid-40s. He has no real racing experience. Just going to go up to rally school for fun. And, you know, nothing's going to come out of it. Except, guess what came out of it? Gymkhana, the biggest automotive driving series of all time. 10 videos, probably 80 million views. Oh, and then Ken went on to become a WRC driver, a World Rally Championship, the first American driver to even be able to compete in that series in like 20 years. So everything this dude set his mind to, he made quite an impact. It's pretty incredible. And on the other side of the spectrum was a bunch of grimy dirtbags in a Long Beach warehouse, kicking around in crappy cars and having fun. That sort of was more my side too. I think I was Hoonigan athlete number 3 or 4 when they started sponsoring drift racers. I was on the Drift Alliance team, me, Chris Forsberg, Von Gitt, and Ryan Turk. I think at one point we were all Hoonigan drivers, and it was just a good fit. Rock and roll, rowdy, knock your sleeves off, have a good time, knock a couple beers back. It all sort of fit in very, very easily. But effectively, that wasn't, again, the way that those guys made their mark. They made their mark with their daily transmission videos, just pumping out car content. They'd set up this sort of little mecca on the south side of Long Beach for cars, right? It was enough space to do a burnout and slide it around. There was always something there. It was like a party scene. People were coming in and out. And all they really had to do when they decided to go from a clothing company to a media company was turn the cameras on, which is, again, know your strengths, know where you are, and figure out what you do well. And that's what they did well. And it was awesome. And they were off and running. Shows like The Unprofessionals with Hurt and Chair Slayer Rob. I love that one. Super goofy, super fun. Just a bunch of dudes breaking stuff across this great land, having fun, burning out, sliding their cars around, being goofball buddies. Very cool. They did build biology, kind of like bring a car in, tear through it. Finnegan did a super cool one with Blasphemy early on, did a hellacious burnout in the shop. Very cool. They had a beer with series where people would come in, people of note would come in, have a beer, answer some questions, have some fun, kind of a video podcast, but also with some hops and barley thrown in there. I believe that my episode is still the most popular one. No big deal. I'm not tooting my own horn or anything. And, you know, they were kind of chugging with that for a while. And then this versus that, totally brilliant idea. Simple, repeatable, didn't cost them a fortune. Was to take 2 very dissimilar cars or bikes or any moving vehicle that could get down an airstrip and match them up against each other. And after a bunch of shit talking and guesstimations, send them and see who comes out on top. And they were able to use the Hoonicorn as kind of like the ultimate prize fighter, sort of like, you know, Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson's Punch Out. That's the Hoonicorn on that airstrip because it's basically unbeatable. And if you remember being a kid and playing Nintendo, Mike Tyson was near impossible. So that thing has whatever, 1,600 horsepower, incredibly well built, all-wheel drive on an unprepped surface. The Hoonicorn is tough to beat. So you would think these 3 giant successful automotive YouTube channels would just keep on chugging out fun content, you know, making a couple of bucks, growing more fans, and having fun for the foreseeable future, right? Wrong! That is not how big business works in America. Cut it. So in unfettered capitalism, and that's how we rock it here in America, business is cutthroat. These people are going after every dime they can, and they want to make money, and they want to connect, and they want to sell, and that is what happened here. What am I saying? I'm saying. People are looking for more and more and more growth. That's the keyword, growth. I personally wouldn't mind a little more growth myself. I feel like I'm just a little under average height, but I could do with a little more, if I'm being honest. Growth does sound appealing. But I'm not going to Russia, and I'm not doing that thing where they break your legs and make them longer with steel rods. That's too much. It's too much. Unless you guys think it's a good idea, we could start a GoFundMe or something. If you've got shareholders, especially if you're a public company, they want to see growth. Do they say, you know, do people care about, are we a good company? Are we serving our customers? Are we, you know, providing a better future? Are we beloved? Do we provide a real and valuable service? No, it's growth. That's what they care about. It's the one and only thing. So let's say you're a venture capitalist or a media company or another automotive company, and you're looking at these people that have done kind of the incredible feat of getting all of your customers together and they're able to talk to them and connect with them month after month, year after year in a meaningful way, well, that gets pretty attractive to people that write checkbooks. So when these big companies come in to acquire these channels, what are they buying? That's the central question here, because I don't think they understand it, and I'm not even sure that I understand it. Are you buying the brand? Are you buying the back catalog? Are you buying the creative force behind everything that's made them successful? Because I don't think they did that, at least not the creative part. And the problem there is that you're taking a creative unit and trying to turn it into a commodity, and it's such a finely tuned thing, and it's so hard to do that I just don't think that it melds. You can't be some giant company and buy Hoonigan and say, okay, sell me a bunch of wheels. It's not how it happens. Is that too close to home? No, it's good, right? And I think, and I'm not the company, I have no direct connection to companies that bought out, Hoonigan and Donut and Motor Trend. But realistically, if you're not keeping the central core on, then what is the value? And I think that's the big issue here, is that these companies didn't understand what they were buying and didn't know how to use these brands, these big channels, for their own devices. And that device is, remember, giant growth. So if you went out and you bought the 1994 Chicago Bulls, and then you found out that Jordan and Pippen weren't really under contract, and they could not only go out, but they could go out and start their own team and be operating immediately and pull a bunch of your fans with them and a bunch of the merch and a bunch of all the things you just paid for. I don't think that would look great at the next shareholder meeting. But that's just what happened. A ton of the main, crucial, brilliant YouTube and content creators, influencers, that word's gross, went on to just start their own new YouTube channels. Because I don't know what the contracts look like, but they were very clearly able to do that. Now, Motor Trend is its own separate entity. They really did a good job of holding on to the vast majority of their important talent. But as of recently, people are out there on YouTube. Finnegan's been on YouTube for a long time. Finnegan's Garage has near 1 million subs. And recently, David Freiberger, probably Motor Trend's creative linchpin, has recently gone out and started his own channel on YouTube as well. And it is rocking and rolling as we speak. There's a bunch of great stuff on there. And having worked at Motor Trend, I can tell you something has changed, I would assume, in David's contract to be able to do that. And for the reason I didn't start a YouTube channel after Finnegan did was that everyone's held really tight to the vest, and it was sort of a closed off, non-negotiable no in everyone's contract. But I would assume, and don't quote me or sue me on this, I would lay money on it that David made some maneuvers to be able to now be out there on YouTube. And I think it's awesome. Now, those guys are all still at Motor Trend, and Motor Trend is functioning really more as a TV channel. So we'll kind of move away from them at this point. But it's really cool to see that most of the hosts there are, and former hosts, me being one of them, he's active on YouTube, still making fun content. The Dirt Every Dave at the Dirt Head Shed is doing his thing. He is one of my favorite dudes. Upbeat, wicked fabricator, doesn't overdo anything, works super hard, super fast, and makes a great cup of coffee. Fred from Dirt Every Day, still doing his stuff out on YouTube, rocking and rolling. So it's really cool that either people that are still there are able to be on the channel, and people that have left are doing their own stuff on YouTube as well. So we're moving on to Donut, which is probably the wildest story of all, because more or less, Donut was acquired, and they did the wildest thing. They allowed a bunch of their hosts to create a massively popular YouTube, the big time guys, Zach and Jeremiah, and still work at and promote from the Donut YouTube channel, which I think is, number one, really cool. It's like, you want to do what we're doing as well as your own thing, do it. The world is an open market. The world's a kitchen. You can go cook up whatever you want in it, and you're not going to take anything away from us. But here's what I have seen. The guys from Big Time left when Donut was at its peak, right? There was no slowdown. There was nothing like, it was a dormant channel. Donut was rocking and rolling, and the guys from Big Time left, and within 24 hours of making this announcement and coming out with a Why I Left Donut video and what it's all going to be like now, have amassed 1 million subs, which is wildness. I'm not saying I'm jealous. I'm saying great job, fellas. That is so sick. It's so cool. And I think that those guys, those two guys specifically, were a huge part of what made Donut cool, and now their new channel is rad. It feels more intimate. It feels more down to earth. It's them working on an S14. They bought a cheap and ridiculous old semi for hauling stuff around, and it's just like digging into it and trying to understand it. It's not pretentious. It's not crazy production. It's really fun. It's a really cool channel. You should check it out if you haven't. And it's, you know, I think that already it's proven like these guys have inherent value in what they're doing, and leaving Donut might sting a little. On the other hand, a super interesting and super cool channel that has popped up is James Pumphrey's Speed. I don't know how you say it. Speed, it's got extra E's. Speed. His Speed channel is also crushing it. And I don't think it hit 1 million subs in the first 5 minutes like Big Time did, mostly because I think if you type in the word speed in YouTube, it's hard to find. But after a day and a half, it was rocking and rolling, and he's already up at 1 million plus subs. I think Pumphrey is one of my favorite hosts. His energy is incredible. But what he's doing now, his first video was why I left Donut. With the story of him at Donut, you know, he's got a really interesting story. If you didn't notice, he's hilarious. He has a comedy background. He's done all sorts of different things. Grew up with a love of cars. And Pumphrey's most recent video, in a totally wild move, is a retrospective on Carhartt.
You know the logo. You've seen the meme.
You know, the construction apparel brand. And apparently, it's incredible. And that's a thing you can do if you're forward thinking and you have the chops and you can make it work. So I think we're gonna see sort of an up to speed on everything that dude's interested in. And considering it has 850,000 views in a couple days, I think it's gonna work awesome. So kudos, very cool. I'm gonna watch it later today because I'm a Carhartt dude. I usually buy them first, not at a thrift store. I actually wear them out myself, right? Legitimately. Now, Hoonigan is its own special case. You know, I think, had a lot of people see what was coming down the road, make plans to do their own things, and some of my favorite presenters like Hurt. Hurt just bounced, moved to Georgia with T-Pain. They're doing Nappy Boy Automotive. I saw him on stage at Grid Life in front of 50,000 people, and also he has a show with Rutledge on NBC. So I think Hurt's gonna be okay. My guess is he's gonna be fine. Another dude who is a great buddy of mine, but I'm a big fan. He is hilarious. He was probably my favorite person on camera at Hoonigan. And now has gone on to some pretty big and incredible things. We've also got Zach, my guy, the chop lord himself. Zach has moved on to full-on event promoting, which I think is brilliant for him with his Burnout Wars series. It's awesome. He was actually just here a week ago. We did a once-over on my 55. We took it out. We had some fun, so watch for that on his YouTube channel, which is rocking and rolling. And lastly, we have Mr. Cool himself, Vin Anatra, who is doing a sort of lifestyle, woe is me, I accidentally got a GT3 and then I accidentally traded it for a GT3 RS and then some guy sold me his Ferrari super cheap. It's baller cars, it's super fun, it's a pretty down-to-earth vibe, and it's him and his boys in California just like doing upgrades to them, trying to understand the value of them. His real skill is sort of the wheeler dealer, so he's leaning into that, which I think is another brilliant sort of niche to fall into. And again, I tell these people all the time when they talk to me about YouTube what to do, I say, play to your strengths, keep doing it, make it fun, and you'll find an audience. And that's what all of the people I'm talking about have done. And they're all wildly different. You know, every single person from Hoonigan is doing something completely different. And I love all of them. And then all the guys from Donut, totally different. And now it's time to talk about the winners and the losers of the great YouTube purchases of 20,000, whatever it is. And it's now time to talk about what's next for these brands and for these creators. I don't really know what happens with these brands. I've seen a lot of vitriol, a lot of hate comments on YouTube and on social media for Donut, for Hoonigan. And for me, I know this is a business decision. Like if Hoonigan doesn't turn out to sell a ton of wheels for Wheel Pros, what's going to happen to that brand? Is it going to die off? Are they going to crush it? Are they going to kill it if they don't get their money out of it? I don't know. and it's really gonna, only time will tell. Same for Donut. They were acquired, they're drastically shifting things. They still have a bunch of great hosts there. I don't know if the content is gonna be the same as it was before. I don't know if the reception will be the same. I don't really know what the future holds for either one of those brands. So the future could not be brighter. Stay tuned here. We're gonna get back to building cars, and we will see you guys next time. I don't know how you sit down this long. This is too long.